continue using React API. So I'm going to cover React get API, delete, and get item by ID, where you access it to the next page and pass in the ID. So I've created a project here, so I'm going to delete some files. So we can delete this one, this one, this one, and we delete them, and then we delete the logo, remove the logo, and then now I'm going to create a new file. Create a new file, I'm going to call it home.physics. So home, we're going to have a class, I'm going to import React, then component from React. I'm going to have a class named home, and we extend component class. Extend, not expect, extend our class. Then we export our class. Then we render. Then we return items inside our class. We can say welcome home. So we have welcome home. Then we can go here, and then we want to return home. We want to display home from home. Then we can get rid of index CSS. Can get rid of index CSS. There where it is home. This. So now we have things our app running. So now let's install. I'm going to install Bootstrap. Install Bootstrap. Then we install Bootstrap, and then we can import it here. We can import Bootstrap here. Bootstrap dot mini css. We import it there. Then now you can see Bootstrap is there, it's working. So now I'm going to create a menu, functional component, menu. So we're going to go here, new file, call it menu.jsx. So you can continue from the project that you are working on. So importing this from React. I'm just starting a new project, but you can still use your old project. Then return something, then export our menu. So we're going to have a menu, then we can go here and say Inside there we import that menu. Import that menu, and we can have our menu there and say menu here. There's our menu. Then now we can go and say, let's go to say it's our menu, but we don't need menu, we just need a default router. So we're going to install, just my network is very poor, let's wait for this, but we can go and say, and another thing there, say npm install react router DOM. We're installing our menu, and then we have CSS. So we're installing the router. Let's import browser router as router. It might not work since we're still waiting for that to display. Then we have root, and then yeah, from react router DOM. Let's give it some time to install it because this won't work. Can't resolve. Let's give it time to install. It's taking forever. We will need a switch here. So now we can create our menu while we're still waiting for that to complete. Then we can have a switch function where we have create our root and then path. And the first one we need it to be to redirect to when we click to any item to take us to the next page, so we can call it details. Then it must contain an ID. Then we are done with this one. Then we will call that function under here. We'll call that function under here. And now we can have a default one. Then path. We have a default root, which I can call it, let's call it, let's go and say new file, and we have a landing.jsx. We have landing, then we can have another file, we can call it details.jsx. That's it. Then we're gonna have our functional component in there. It's done this. Then I'm gonna have this landing and this, and then functional component, and then import React from React, and const then landing, then I'm creating a functional component for our landing page. Then it must return something. Then you can say landing page, landing functional component. Landing functional component. Then we'll export. this and then paste it inside here. Then we change this to details, this to details, then details, and then now tempted import error brow spelling error. There's a spelling mistake there. Then inside here we can have landing. So instead of landing functional component, then inside here we can have details. Then we are done with our menu. This is our menu. It returns what we want. So now we can close it, and then now we're going to work on this. We don't need. We need this. This we don't need. We need this and this. So let's import React. Let's import Bootstrap. Let's import Bootstrap. Import Bootstrap. We imported Bootstrap. So we're going to use to fetch an API here. So to fetch it, I'm going to go to JSON placeholder, this fake API, JSON placeholder. You can see it has all the functions that we need, which is get, post, and put, and patch, and delete. So we want to get the post. So to get the post, we're going to use this one to get all the posts so that we can display them here. So I'm going to grab this and say post this and put it inside there, and then open Bootstrap. I want to use the containers, so we're going to use the containers. You can use this one, copy, then you can have it here, and then this, we cancel this, which is class name. Then now you can have it there. Then let's format the document, so that it can look nicely. So we have this imported, this, we're going to use this container, and then now I want to use I want to use a list, and then the cut will use it on the same page. Let's use a list. I want a list, clickable item list. Yeah, I need this, so I'm going to copy it, paste it inside here. Then we format it. That is there. Then go back. This is the list. Yeah, so it's fine. So now I'm going to go and then remove other things that I don't want, like this up until okay, this part I don't need. I'm gonna remove this. Don't need them. So yeah, so we can have I can write this inside a container, which is div class name card. the card, then just like that, and then say MT. I can add 1, MT-1, MT-4. Yeah, it's fine. Now we have some spacing on top. So now we want to display, to create what we call fetch this. We want to fetch this and then display that data here. So meaning we're going to create a function, and then we're going to have a use state inside here. So we're gonna go here, and then we use these hooks, react hooks, which is use effect, and then we use state, and then now we can go here and then have that hook and say we want to create a variable that will contain the data. We can call it data, set data. Then we can go now and say equals to use state. Our use state is an array since it's going to contain multiple objects. So now we can create a function. We can use effect function to get the data that we want. To get the data that we want, so we're going to use fetch, and then I'm going to copy this link, copy, then we paste it inside here. Then now what we need, let me fix this. This is an arrow function. Then now this is going to return a promise. It's going to return a promise. So in that promise, we want to grab the result, which I'm going to call it the res. And then we can console log it and see the result. But since I did on the first video, we know how to get the result from here. So we're going to return res.json. We're going to return a JSON file, and then we're going to get data. I'm going to do dash data since we have a variable called data on top. So I'm going to go dash data, then we can grab data inside here. Then you can go ahead and create catch. If you want to catch some errors there, you can go and create error, then you console log error, so you can catch error, and then you can go and add finally there if you want to add. And then doesn't receive any argument, so you can say console.log done. So just to show you the status that this API successfully ran, but the result will be here and here. So now inside here we're going to set data, and then we're going to pass our data that we're going to receive from the API, which is this. So now this variable has this data, and now we can save, then we refresh. Then now let's go and display this information. So I'm just going to do it very quick since we already know how to get API data. So let's go ahead and say with this we want to display, we're going to have what we call a map function. So I'm going to cut this, and then we have a map function. It's going to be data dot map, and then I'm going to call it action. Then inside here we can have our list. We can have our list inside here. We can have our list. We can have our list inside there to display the data that we want. So we can have this, expect this parameter. Let me start it from scratch. this function. There's something which is missing. This, which I'm going to put it inside there. Action. Then this. And now we can pass whatever that we want to do inside here. So we can pass this, and then we display. It's supposed to display an array. So let's see what we get. Last name, determine last name. Done, blah blah, done. Okay. Action. Then supposed to display the data that we want, a list of items. Yeah, a list of items here. So let's go ahead and say action dot let's see what it returns. Dot title dot title. So it must return a title for us. Done. Class name. We'll remove these curly brackets. It was the curly brackets that was doing the mess for us, but then the unique key. So it said each child in a list should have a unique key. So meaning that each child here must have a unique key. So we're going to check here. We have a user ID. We have an ID. So we're going to use this ID as a key for our thing. So we're going to go add the key. We can say key, and then we say action dot ID dot ID. So now let's refresh. Did you mean class name? With the class name. Refresh. It's done. So meaning we no longer have an error. So now we need to stop this. So this. Then we are fine. Now our array, it will only do once. So it does once. So meaning now we managed to get what? Our what you call API call. We managed to do our API call. So now we can continue and say, now we want to say, when we click this, it must take us to the next page. We click, it must take us to the next. Click, it must take us to the next page. So to do that, we need to have a clickable link. So you can use this one, the href one, and then inside here we'll say we will pass can have it like this, and then we can pass the link that we want to access, which is the details. Then we pass the ID, which is action.id. So we're passing one ID so that we can access a particular item that we click here. So we say, so now when we say it takes us to details, which is passing the ID there, 7. Takes out to the details page, passing the ID 7 there. So it does what we want. It does what we want. Refresh. Then take us to, see, the ID is passed there. The ID is passed there. So now let's fix the issue that when we click, it must go to the next page, because I see it doesn't go to the next page. We want it to navigate to the next page. Everything is fine. To menu, details, menu. Then we have must take us to the details page. So it looks like everything is fine. The details here, and then we have this menu, landing. Okay, landing is fine. Then details, it's fine. Okay, let's go ahead and create some things inside the details page, the details functional page. optional component. So I'm going to remove this and use a link. I'm going to use a link, so you must navigate to, then we will pass a link here. So import link from React router DOM, then save. Let's cancel this, refresh. Must navigate to the next page that we want. So let's go here and say this is fine, this is fine, this is fine, and then now we want to access that ID on the next page, which I don't understand why it's not going to the next page. So it's not going to the next page, the one that we need, and then everything is, we did everything correctly there, we passed it, and then it must take us to the next page. Is this switch, then landing details, okay, forgot this. Let me give a path, this, then refresh, details path, it's working fine. We have a path, we have this, forgetting to, yeah, now it's working very fine. I forgot to insert this. Now when we click here, it will take us to the next page, and we can go back, next page, go back, next page, go back, next page. So it works very fine. So let's move and close this. Just minor things that I forgot. Now we are able to pass this. We are able to pass the ID, and then now we need to access it this side. So we're going to import. We're going to use React Params, and then from router DOM, React router DOM. So to access this, when we click here to access this ID there, we need to use the React params. So we're going to const, I'm going to have an ID and say this, use React params, then now we can have this, and then now we can say this, we want to display the ID, so we say save this, and then we get this object with key ID if you mean it. So meaning that our parameters returns a JSON string. So meaning we must wrap this thing inside a JSON dot string file ID, just like this. So now we are able to access what? The ID. See, the ID is 1. We go back, say click, ID is 5. So now we are able to get the ID, to access the ID. So to be able to view the ID, to view this ID, to grab this ID and use it to display, to use the post, and I mean get post by ID, get post by ID to get a single post that we clicked on to get this. We will need to use this ID inside our function. So I'm going to import React hook, which is use effect. I'm going to pass it there, and I'm going to pass another one, which is use state. So I'm going to create a component here, a variable. I'm going to call it info. Then I'm going to set info equals to use state, your state, and then now this will contain these ID details here. These ID details, I'm gonna say, and then now we're going to want to access this. So to access this, I'm going to put it inside a curly brackets. I'm going to say this, and then ID. So now we can access this ID. You see it's 5. So meaning now we no longer need the string file ID. You can just write an ID. It will display 5 there. So now we are able to access that. Now we get data by ID. Get data by ID. So we're going to get that data using the use effect hook. And then now we're going to use the fetch, and then now we fetch what? This by ID. So I'm going to copy this, then paste it here, and then cancel this, and then plus ID. We're passing what? An ID. Passing an ID, then we must return us the result, and the result that we need. We must return the result as JSON. Then now we can go and access those results as data, and then now we can set info. We set it to data that we're going to get from here. So now we are done with this part. We can get the data easily. To see that we're able to get data, you can use the console.logs to view the data that you're getting. And then now, but this variable contains the information coming from here, which we passed it inside here. So now we're going to go and say we want to display this detail. So I'm going to grab a card. We're going to use a card to display that data. I'm going to grab a card that we need, symbol card. I'm grabbing this, which has a button. Grab this and then paste there. Format document, and format it nicely. Yeah, so now we have that card here, and then we can go and then wrap it inside this. We can wrap it inside this class so that it can have some margins there. And we can go ahead and close it here. Close it here, and then now you can see it looks nice there. And then now we're just gonna go and say class name. So this thing is just to show you how to use classes, how to use the classes, how to use Bootstrap also, because this is how to use Bootstrap. So let me go and say I want to grab something different. I want to grab something different. Okay, it's fine. So class name. So this is class name. There we have it. Then we can refresh. The errors are gone. So we can close this. Say we have these. Then now we go back. And then we click this. So when we click, it must display the data here. So I'm gonna take this one out, and then now we can start displaying the data. And then now this is going to be info dot title. So there we're going to have title. Then to have info dot body dot body. So this is the body. So this items I'm getting, this the body, title and the body. So you can go ahead and say user ID there. Featured, you can say ID, say info dot user ID, and we save. That means it's capital letter I. User ID, let's check if we grab user ID. There it is, user ID 2, it's fine. So yeah, that's how you can access these items. Navigate to the next page, it will display the one that you clicked on. And now let's say we want to delete this item, and then I'll create an auto function here. Auto function to add data. I'm going to create a function to add data. Yeah, so I'm going to use effect. Then to add data, you can add data by ID, or you can, how you do it. So let's say this, we wanted to add data. I'm going to use fetch, and then now we're going to copy this link. Then now we can say then result. You can use a form here if you want, but I'm using this, so I'm going to return. I'm going to console status here, console.log status. Status and console log status. Status. I want a status. Res.status. So it must show me a status here. We'll say this inspect. Then we check console. Status is 200, meaning it's able to get it. And then now let me say I'm passing the ID. Passing that ID, this ID, because we want to add this, which is put page delete. I want to use this put. Then we want to pass the options here. I'm going to create options. Then we have a method. We have a method there. Method, which is put. Then another one. Let's say we want body. Then you can pass body, pass data that we want to do. Say Jensen.75. Then I'm going to create the dummy data here. Const info, I'm gonna call it info. I'm gonna call it info. Then I have dummy data, which is title. Then there's dummy data there. Then we can have body, and then dummy data there. And then now we can pass that info inside here. Can pass that info, then you can go here and say this. We are passing options. We're passing options. Then we save. This data is 200, meaning it was success. So we can go here and say then finally then you can have this can have it there. Posted data, status is fine. Then you can go and say this, we want it to run once. So meaning it's fine, we can post automatically. So this is the function. You can have you can create it using you can create a function here where you can have a form, and then that form will receive these values, then it will work the way you want it to work. And then that's how it works. So now let's go and say we want to delete. If you want to delete, you can go ahead and say this delete post. So to delete the post, you can create a function here and call it delete post, and const delete post. Then inside here you can have your the fetch function that you can use to delete the post. So this, let's say this we wanted to receive, this must be a button, and then type here must be danger, and then now we want this button to delete a post. So we can go here and say and this you can do it on this side. Just to do the effect, you can have a button here. When you click here, it delete, rather than having it inside here. So yeah, then now let's go and say we are deleting this. Then we're gonna pass an ID here. Pass an ID with action dot ID. Let me check if IDs are different. ID3, ID2. Yeah, we are using an ID. We are passing an ID inside here, and then passing an ID. Then we can have a click. Then we say delete post. So this post will receive an event, and I can call it ID and say const ID equals to e dot target dot ID. We're targeting the button ID. Then now we can say fetch. Then we to avoid doing a lot of posting this, you can create a variable that can contain this link. Then we post it there, and then now we are deleting where post ID. So we can go ahead and say this ID, even though you don't do this, you can still grab this ID because it's the same ID that we want to use is this one. So you can just go right and write the same ID there, or you can write the one that you want to grab from here. So this is another method of grabbing the ID. So this you can do it inside here. It will be nice when you have a button here and then you pass this ID like this inside here, then you can grab it like this. But when you're on this page, on this one, there's no need to have it like this, since we're able to grab the ID here, then it's fine. So you can have it like that or like this, it will still work. Then now we can say we want method is delete. So we are deleting, then we want to grab status. Then we can say console log res dot status, then say we want to status is going to be okay. Then let's say catch if something is wrong, then catch error, then we say console the log error. So yeah, that's how you can do it. Let's see. It's not defined. Info.body. Where is info? ID, button ID, application casual ID. What is this? Okay, we don't need this here. What was that? So it's fine. This ID we do consult for you, so you can see that we are indeed grabbing that ID. Grabbing this ID, we can go ahead and say console.log, and then now we pass that ID. Let's say passed ID. We passed that ID. And we say, and click and say passed ID is 3. This is 3. Passed ID is 3. Passed ID is 3. Post data, then passed ID. So status is 200, meaning we are able to run the delete. But this thing can see it nicely on this side. When you have a button here, when you click, it will remove this. Click, you remove this. But this is how you can do it as easy as possible. Just wanted to show you how to pass the ID to the next page and then access it and use the delete, the pause and put. So nothing is difficult, just to use this function and then the landing page to get to fetch an API. We did fetch an API, we did display it, and then we used this to get the page ID that we are passing, which is this, which is passing in by link and passing the page. And then now you can go and access it this side, and then you pass your data and then you post it, and then you can delete it and display a single item. So this is all about React HTTP Verbs. So thank you so much. Next lesson coming is React Firebase. So we're going to use React Firestore. So practice a lot, and then you can go to that website that I use. You can go to this just to practice on your own, or you can go and grab any other API that you want to do it on your own, just to have a challenge, just to challenge yourself. So yeah, and then thank you so much. This is all for me. Just wanted to show you Bootstrap and then how to fetch the API and accessing it on the next page, meaning it's passing what the parameters. So thank you so much.